So I just got out of Indiana Jones 5. Let's start with spoiler-free impressions. I'm gonna be honest, I had exceedingly low expectations. After hearing the reaction at Cannes, the terrible reviews that followed, I was expecting a pretty big dumpster fire, but it wasn't really. It was actually pretty good. This isn't like a big crowd pleaser. I really don't expect it to do well in the box office. My theater was basically empty. It was like me and a few other people. About 40 minutes in, the two teenagers sitting in front of me walked out and didn't come back. So I don't think this one's gonna have a ton of general audience appeal, maybe even less than Crystal Skull, but it is far better than Crystal Skull. It's still the fourth best Indiana Jones film, but the gap between the third best and the fourth best is definitely smaller now. So yeah, overall, it's a solid enough picture. I would say if you like the character of Indiana Jones, you may as well see this one. My biggest criticisms are some of the pacing is a little sluggish, some moments in the action scenes don't quite work, and visually some of the CG doesn't look great to me. Kind of like what was going on in Crystal Skull, honestly. But where the action works, it works fairly well. The MacGuffin, the Dial of Destiny, is intriguing, and Harrison mostly works as Indy in this one in a way that it didn't work in Crystal Skull. So all in all, I would recommend this one. I was mostly engaged throughout, even in places where it gets a little weird, but it mostly works. All right, let's talk a little bit about spoilers. I definitely think that intro sequence is going to be polarizing. It's a fairly long extended adventure with young Indy, featuring a digitally de-aged Harrison Ford. The de-aging looks pretty good. It does have that CG look to it still. If you have an eye for these things, you're going to notice it. The bigger aspect to me was Harrison's voice. Hearing 80-year-old Harrison Ford's voice coming out of 35-year-old Harrison Ford's face was jarring, to the point where I'm almost like you're doing the de-aging thing, just like de-age his voice with AI or whatever. You're already doing it. Why not just take that extra step? He doesn't talk too much in that sequence, so it's not like the biggest deal. Other than that, I really like that intro. You know, appropriate conversation around the de-aging thing aside, it felt like we were getting one last, like, real Indiana Jones adventure with the real Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? Not the elderly husk that he currently is. But no, that whole opening sequence was really cool from start to finish. It had all the classic Indy hallmarks. Indy working with some random sidekick, trying to get a Christian artifact, and taking down several dozen Nazis along the way. Yeah, and once again, the villains are just Nazis, which, hey, are safe and effective villains, but we've already done it before twice. But every time they try and take a risk and introduce other villains, everyone hates it, so I kinda get what they're doing. I guess every other Indiana Jones film needs to deal with the Nazis. We also get Sala every other Indiana Jones film. There's your pattern. On the subject of these Nazis, I did think that the villain was one of the weaker points. Pretty much all of the Indiana Jones villains have been fairly weak, so it's not terribly out of the ordinary. The only villain with like anything going on was Belloc. This one was a little flat, although his motivation was kinda interesting in him wanting to overthrow Hitler and become the Führer himself. As for the other characters, I liked Helena a lot, to the point where I'm like, okay, you've kind of won me over. If you want to do more movies with her, I would watch them. She was charismatic, engaging, spunky, a lot of fun, incredibly smart, just like Indy. Kind of everything Mutt wasn't. I didn't super love that we killed off Mutt. I mean, sometimes shit just happens in life. But seeing this like super hyper miserable Indy after everything he's been through, after getting the love of his life back and now they're just broken up, I don't know, felt a little off to me. Making Indy's life terrible like that kind of felt like Han in The Force Awakens. Lost his son, he split up with his woman, but that's a minor point. I also mostly liked Harrison as Indy again. It's definitely a step up from Crystal Skull. They made the right choice of making the adventure the forefront, not his character. The truth is, there was never really a character in Indiana Jones.
I don't really want characterization out of Indiana Jones.
The character was the adventure, and he was just the conduit for it. But seeing this 80-year-old man trying to do action just doesn't quite work. Similar to Crystal Skull, only now he's even older, but his action scenes are a little bit more subdued. There's this like big, giant, heavy German guy or whatever, and I was thinking in the back of my head, like, is Indy gonna fight this guy? He always fights the heavy, right? Thankfully, they avoid that. They sort of subvert it with having that kid take him down. As for the kid, I didn't like super mind him, but he felt a little bit like Short Round 2. They even referenced that he tried to take Helena's purse or something, like directly mirroring the Short Round stuff.
He's been living on the street since he was 4. I caught him trying to pick my pocket. Didn't I, short stuff?
So he's about as good as Short Round, maybe less charming. Indy's motivation for this journey was flimsy as well. There's like one line of him saying he just like wants to get the dial back for, I don't even remember, some reason. It's not even that he believes in its power or he sees some hint of its power and that he wants to prevent the Nazis from getting it.
The Bible speaks of the ark leveling mountains and laying waste to entire regions. An army which carries the ark before it He's invincible.
No, he just kind of just wants to get it, which is flimsy motivation to me. And like I said, he doesn't really have an arc where he like rediscovers something about himself, something about his love for archaeology. In the beginning, we see Indy retiring from teaching, basically half-assing his final classes. The passion for this is completely gone from him. A simple arc would have been to have him regain that passion. The crazy stuff at the end could have been that catalyst for him, but that didn't really end up going anywhere. Helena too didn't really have an arc. She starts off kind of like a darker version of Indy, incredibly smart, good in a fight, knows all about ancient history, but chooses to sell the artifacts on the black market, whereas Indy obviously took them to museums. And so her arc could have been learning to respect these artifacts more. Maybe learn from Indy a little bit. Kind of like what I was saying could have happened to Mutt in Crystal Skull in my review of that film, but that didn't really happen either. Even the kid character I thought was going to have some sort of arc, but he didn't. At one point, he's talking to Helena about wanting to sell these artifacts for money, and he was like, Indy's not going to let us do that. We gotta make money. And so he looks a little disillusioned with Helena and Indy. The next scene, he finds the Nazis, and I thought he was going to join them to help them for profit.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
And then maybe figure out that they're bad and that he should help Indy and Helena down the road. But that doesn't happen either. So yeah, our lead characters were missing arcs, and that stood out to me as a pretty big issue. But the Indiana Jones series was never really about the characters. It was about the adventure. The adventure was the main character. And I was engaged by this adventure. Overall, I was intrigued by its story. I was intrigued by the dial. I was like, what does it do? What is it gonna do? And then when shit started to unravel and they actually went to the past, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. And I was like, is this gonna work? And it mostly does. It's still a little silly, and I think I was like smiling to myself at how silly this all was. It does stand out as a little weird, but not nearly as bad as what happens at the end of Crystal Skull. I guess my only issue with the dial is that I didn't really get how it worked. Like, they talked about the times that were written on that paper, and then like rifts in time or whatever, and then the Nazis just like found one in some kind of storm cloud. How do they find that? Are there other rifts? How do you find those? I don't know. I did find that a little bit convoluted, and maybe a little bit more explanation would have been good. Again, like maybe seeing some kind of hint of its power early on would have worked. There were some moments where our characters got out of situations in not the most organic ways. Like there were like 5 situations where they had like 8 guns pointed at them, and they would just kind of start walking away and get away. One of the more intriguing things is that Indy still has the dial. They kind of do the same thing that they did at the end of Crystal Skull, where you think maybe it's time to hang up the old hat. You know, Shia had it, then Indy took it. In this one, his hat is like hanging up, and there's like an iris circle zooming into it, and then Indy like grabs the hat. So like maybe there's more adventures to come, but I think they have come out and said that this is done. This was the final one for sure.
His final adventure.
What's that?
Will be his greatest.
But we'll see. Like I said, I would honestly be down with more adventures from Helena in this same style. Compared to Mutt, she actually has the real chops for it. She knows everything about history like Indy. She can speak other languages like Indy. She's quick on her feet. She's good in a fight. She's charming. She's fun. I genuinely think she's set up to be a good successor to Indy. But with how I expect this movie to do in the box office, and obviously critically, I don't see that happening. But overall, I kind of like this film. I don't know how popular my opinion is going to be, but I mostly liked it, and I think it is worth checking out, honestly. What are your thoughts on the film? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.